1212. This is an IC 109 production.
You're at 109 right now.
Can Donnell Rawlings speak Korean? All right. I just had a very heated conversation with a friend, a very good friend of mine from elementary school of the Korean extraction. And although I lived in Korea for nearly a decade, my buddy, my brother, told me that I do not speak Korean. He was emphatic and he said, Larry, you're not fluent in Korean. You know a few words in Korean. I mean, he was just tearing me apart, just telling me you don't speak Korean. Now, I never said I was fluent in Korean. I know how to say more than a couple of words, which is how he put it. And I've never really talked with him in Korean. Never, talked, So he's never explored the depths of my knowledge of the Korean language, but he wasn't giving me any credit, okay? However, there was one point in our conversation where I said, well, at least my pronunciation is better than Donnell Rawlings. Because at some point during the conversation, I brought up Donnell Rawlings, and my buddy was saying, Donnell Rawlings doesn't speak Korean. And I'm like, but he's speaking Korean. And he's like, no, it's wrong. And I'm like, he's speaking Korean. And then I had to sort of acquiesce and say, well, my pronunciation is better than Donnell Rawlings. Okay. Anywho, I found this 12-year-old podcast featuring Donnell Rawlings. We're going to listen to it, and I'm going to offer some commentary, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. Can Donnell Rawlings speak Korean? Wait a minute. I'm kind of being presumptuous because I'm going to be the judge. How can I be the judge of whether Donnell Rawlings speaks Korean if, as my buddy says, I don't even speak Korean? Well, this is the IC 109 podcast, and regardless of what my buddy says, I do speak Korean. My buddy was not being polite. He wasn't, he was just trying to tear me apart. His point was, man, don't gas yourself, right? Don't gaslight yourself. I hope I'm using that term correctly. I don't know what gaslighting means. I think it is, forget I even said gaslighting. All right. But he said, don't gas yourself. Don't, and he was telling me, don't be delusional. You don't speak Korean at all. And I'm just like, wow, okay, dude. But this is my podcast. My pronunciation of Korean phrases is better than Donnell Rawlings. We're going to listen to Donnell Rawlings speak Korean, and I'm going to offer my commentary on his pronunciation, and we'll let it go from there. All right? So let's see what this is all about. This is Donnell Rawlings from 12 years ago. All right? Let's see. This was posted in 2012, June 12th. This is from WTF Donnell Rawlings Speaks Korean. Let's see what this is about.
So wait, now did I just hear you telling my
Mexican?
Yeah, my Mexican assistant that you speak Korean?
I speak Korean, and I'm not fluent, but it's conversation level.
Where did that come from?
I was in the Air Force. I had to change my voice for this part. I was in the United States Air Force.
How long were you in the Air Force?
I'm going to stop it right there because Donnell Rawlings says he's not fluent. Like, let's make that very clear. Like, I'm not saying I'm fluent either. I'm not saying that. I think I made that very clear. I just said that my pronunciation is better, so we're just going to listen for his pronunciation, and then I'm going to actually show you what more I know about the Korean language than just a couple of words, as my buddy says. But Donnell Rawlings is very clear. He says he's not fluent. Now, when I was having this conversation with my buddy, I said some things about Korean people. I said they were chauvinistic, they were nationalistic, they were xenophobic, and they were, xenophobic, chauvinistic, nationalistic, insular, all right? Now, he didn't want to hear those comments, made about his people, about his nation. He didn't. That wasn't it at all. That should have been enough of a conversation starter for us, just to have a discussion. But yeah, he wasn't having it. So I said those things, and I wasn't trying to be petty, and I wasn't trying to dig at him. But honestly, if you go to Korea, like I did, and if you talk to other people who are not Korean, these are the characteristics. These are the things that people notice about Koreans, right? Chauvinistic, nationalistic, xenophobic, and insular. All right. I'm not going to go deep into, describing all of those, but ask someone, you know, check me on what I say. Ask someone who has lived, ask a non-Korean about Koreans and see what they say and find out, if I'm right or not, if I'm off mark. But anyway, let's get back to the conversation with Donnell Rawlings.
Air Force.
I was there for 3 years and 8 months.
Did you fly?
I didn't fly. I mean, that's the misconception people have about the Air Force, like stupid people. The first thing they say, you was in the Air Force. Did you fly planes?
Well, I took a shot, Donnell.
Yeah.
I thought that maybe there was an outside chance that you fucking flew a plane.
Mark, you know my background, right?
I know. I
and
didn't
the
think
little
it was
the
possible.
little or a lot that you know about me, you would never in a lineup say 5 people like Donnell looks like.
He looks like a guy who flew
flew a plane.
All right, so I want to say this. Donnell is making a point that people make people have misconceptions and jump to conclusions. So the idea that he was in the Air Force, is one idea, but no, he wasn't flying planes. So yes, he was technically in the Air Force. That's that gray area. Same thing with languages. You say, "Oh, I can speak that language." That doesn't mean that you're fluent in that language. Like, I've held conversations with people in languages, in Korean and in Spanish, and it's a matter of, hey, what is it? If you can express an idea, you're communicating. But fluency, comes with a whole nother aspect. There's so much more built in, baked into the experience of fluency. But people have this misconception. If you say that you can do something, they think, oh, you can do everything. He's saying you can do everything. No, Donnell Rawlings isn't saying that he speaks Korean fluently, but for what he does say, he can communicate an idea, but he can't do it as well as I can. Which isn't saying much, but it is saying, hey, man, yeah. Let's continue, shall we?
Never. You might say he looked like a guy that smoked some weed. You know what I'm saying? Did a little drugs, but never pilot.
On a plane.
Yeah, on a plane. He might have been high as a plane, but he never flew a plane. But I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed in Kunsan, Korea, and I learned some Korean there. Not fluent, but enough
To get you laid?
get me laid. For real, you got to learn how not to get.
All right, the name of the city in which he lived is Gunsan. Gun. Giyak. U. Nyan. Shia A. Nyan. I just spelled that in Korean. All right? Those are the letters that spell what he just said. Gunsan. I've been there. I went there once, maybe twice.
Get shitted on when it comes to the extra things that you do and how to order food. So that's the first thing. Like we did, it was like a ghetto Rosetta Stone back then.
Yeah.
It's like Omayo Poji. That's like how much.
All right, let me move that back just a tad bit. Let's hear that one more time. He was just trying to say something in Korean.
Poji. That's like how much for
Wait.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
It's like Omayo Poji. That's like how much for the
Pussy?
pussy. Yeah. Because you couldn't say how much for the pussy. Then that's almost like you breaking up like a sting operation. You gotta have.
Okay. So what he was saying, all right, what he was trying to say is 얼마예요? All right, 얼마예요? And 얼마예요 is how much is it? All right. 얼마예요. And then he was trying to say 보지. 보지. All right. 보지. Yeah. 보지's not it's the crudest word, right? Because it is talking about a woman's genitalia. And basically you'd say 보지. 보지 얼마예요? Which would mean that the woman, how much is she? You know, that part of her, how much is it? So his pronunciation was, when I first heard this conversation, I was aghast. Like, nah, man, I can't believe you mispronounced it so terribly, you know. But I guess that's the American military bravado that comes with it. I mean, when you're part of the American machine, and it's like, oh, I don't care. It does. We crush nations. We're part of the imperialist arm, the militaristic arm of the nation. We don't really care about pronunciation, good grammar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which is the point that my buddy was making. Hey, man, he doesn't speak Korean at all. And I guess the fact that Donnell is even saying things like this is just, what is it? It's very upsetting for my buddy. So, but what Donnell said was, 보지 얼마요? How much is, as he said, how much is the pussy?
They'd be nervous if you said it like
if
that?
you say how much for the
You
pussy.
didn't-
Oh, no pussy here.
You didn't ask politely.
No,
you
no,
didn't
no.
ask correctly.
No, you get like 아줌마. 아줌마. 보지 어디 있어요? Did they?
어디 있어요? 어디 있어요? 아줌마, 보지 어디 있어요? All right, so what he said there, which he pronounced it pretty well. All of that he pronounced was pretty, yeah, that's Korean. He said 아줌마, which means older woman, right? That's the best equivalent. Okay, that's the best equivalent that I can give. Maybe it means, if I could be more technical, it might mean married older woman, older married woman, like a Mrs. Or a Ms. I'm not certain. Excuse me. But ajuma is a very respectful term. So ajuma, you're addressing a woman, not particularly, okay, in this case, the prostitute. No, but you're her, as they would call it, the mama-san. So you would be saying, if you're in the military and you're out there to look for some woman's tail, then you'd be saying, what would you say? Ajuma, ma'am, 뭐지, 어디 있어요? And so he's saying, 어디 있어요 means where is it? But it's also a polite way of saying it. When you end a statement in Korean with yo, then it's a polite way. So at least he learned to ask politely for what he's, saying he was asking for. 아줌마, 뭐지, 어디 있어요? 어디 means where. 어디 있어요? 어디 있어요? Where is it? Right? All right. So he didn't ruin the pronunciation, but the first time he said 보지 얼마요? That was like, what? That's terrible.
They'd be like, oh, 보지 있어요.
And do you know how to say that's too much for that pussy?
탁산. Yeah. Yeah. When you say it, no, you got to say it with frustration. Hi, 보지 탁산.
보지 탁산? All right. I've never heard that. So I guess my buddy was right. I don't speak Korean because I don't know that word. I don't know that word. Jaksan? I've never heard that. Never heard it. Never used it. Now, to say expensive, well, to say expensive in Korean, you say 비싸다 or 비싸요. 비싸요. Oh, now, if he was going to say, oh, the woman, the vagina, the pussy is expensive, 뭐지 비싸요. 뭐지 비싸다. Hey. Okay. So he's right. My buddy is right. I don't speak Korean. I don't know Korean because I don't know that word, that one word that Donnell Rawlings spoke. Okay. let's continue.
Hey, you gotta act like somebody shitted close to you. You like, I and hey.
Lock the gate!
All right, that's the end of the podcast. And so here's something that I'll bring up because when I say that I can communicate my ideas in three languages, English, Korean, and Spanish, that's because, you know, I've studied those languages. I studied them enough to know, yes, I can. I can communicate, some ideas. But I also know that I'm not fluent. And I never said that I was fluent, you know, in that language. Now, if I were fluent in any of these given languages, I'd have jobs, you know. I'd have jobs in these fields, or rather, I would be doing something related to that language. Right now, I just had the opportunity for the 25 days. I've had the opportunity to be in the Spanish classroom where I've been the substitute. I've been the long-term sub, and I'll be damned if any students come to the Spanish classroom and not learn anything for the 30 days that I'm with them and then have them leave. So, and then I'm also responsible for grading them. So the staff entrusted me to impart some knowledge to the students. And so I work my butt off to do just that in the classroom, to teach, to impart what knowledge I have of the Spanish language. So that being said, I know some Spanish and I know some Korean. All right. But here's the last thing. The one thought I was trying to express. Even when I was in the Spanish classroom, there was some pushback from the Spanish. Well, not so much Spanish speakers, but the students in the classroom who were, who are closer to the Spanish culture, who are, part of their heritage. Their mom or their father is of Mexican descent or something like this. So they have this word in Mexico that refers to curly hair as chino. This is what the Mexicans use, apparently. So I've been told. So I've learned in the classroom. However, when I was learning the Spanish language, I learned Castilian Spanish, which is the Spanish of Spain. And so in Spain, the word for curly hair is rizado. Rizado and chino are very different words. So my point in the classroom was not to diminish the student who did not know the other word. In fact, I went into a lesson about Spanish has different regions, and Spanish is spoken, or rather, you know what it was? When we were talking one day, that student interrupted me while I was speaking to tell me that I said something that was wrong. We were going through a list of cognates, and the cognates, I said these words are very similar to their English counterparts. The Spanish word and the English words, they're very similar. Look at them, read them, and you can guess the meaning because they're very similar in spelling to the English. So we looked at información, and I said, what's that? They said information. Exactly. At some point, we got to the word brillante. Brillante. And the student, or rather I said that means brilliant. And the student said, no, that means shiny. And I was taken aback, and I was like, uh-oh, maybe I made a mistake. Okay. And I was like, well, doggone it. I thought these words were cognates, and they looked how they look like the words that they are related to in English, based upon their spelling. So brilliant is spelled like the word brilliant. It wouldn't be like shiny, like what's going on here? But the student was adamant. He said no. Brilliant means shiny. Doesn't mean brilliant. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I made a mistake, because I'm not fluent, because I don't know. But then I went and I did some research after the class to figure it out, to say what's going on here. And then that's when I learned, just because a word can have many meanings. And so in this case, I was referring to the meaning of, or the equivalent. Brilliant does mean brilliant as in terms of intelligence, but it can also mean, brilliant as a light, shiny, bright. So basically, the following day or something like this, I spoke with the student, and I said, you know what? Because the student had something else to say. He was correcting me, in another class, he was correcting me. No, that's wrong. And I was like, you know what? When you speak to me, you have said things to me that were, one, they were right and they were wrong at the same time. I told the student this. I said, what you said to me was right and wrong at the same time, because you cannot negate the fact that the word brilliant actually means brilliant, solely because you think that the word brillante only means shiny. Like, hello, words have multiple meanings, my man. Look at the bigger picture. Anyhow, it was the same student who brought to my attention that Chino in Spanish, in Mexico, I was going to say Mexican Spanish, because Spanish is regional, right? That this student was saying that, hey, Chino means curly. And I was like, there's another word, rizado. And I guess I was pulling rank, because I was like, bruh, you're speaking Spanish, you're speaking the Mexican style of Spanish, and I'm trying to teach the Spanish style from Spain. So, yeah, I guess I was kind of pulling rank and saying, But I welcomed the new information. I welcomed the new information because I'm not fluent. But what I do know, I learned well. What I did learn, I've learned well. And so the whole idea that, I don't speak these languages, all right, I might not be able to hang with native speakers of the language, but if I need something, if I need to get by, then I can do that, because I can communicate my ideas. And if need be, I can develop my ability to express myself. Besides, this whole thing about me speaking Korean that my buddy brought up, man, that's a conversation that we could have had 8, 10, 12, 15 years ago. Because when I left Korea in 2016, I basically wiped my hands of Korea. I said, man, I gave it my best shot. I'm not fluent in the language. I'm not going to put any more effort into learning Korean. I washed my hands of it. And that was it. And when I was in Saudi Arabia, I said, man, I need to learn Spanish, because when I get back to Los Angeles, well, that's what I need to be able to do. Need to be able to communicate in Spanish, because there are more Spanish speakers in Los Angeles. So I got to it and I made progress. I'm better at Spanish today than I've ever been in my life. And that is something I can be proud of. But if you listen to my friend, he'll tell you Larry doesn't speak any language but English. He doesn't speak Spanish. He doesn't speak Korean. Well, by that measure, Donnell Rawlings doesn't speak Korean either, even though he can communicate his ideas in Korean. So there's truth in everything, a little bit of truth in everything that we say, or maybe there's a lot of truth in everything that we say. I'm not fluent in Korean. I'm not fluent. You know what? Whenever I speak Spanish, I say I'm not fluent in Spanish. I said, but I have my moments. A veces puedo comunicar mis ideas con fluidez. I don't know. And then my buddy said that he learned to speak Korean by speaking Korean all day. He was speaking to someone all day, and that was his process. Well, I didn't have that experience of learning Korean. I had to read books. I had to speak, when an opportunity presented itself. So I had a very different experience, and I didn't have classes. I lived in Korea for 9 years and some change, and it wasn't until I want to say my seventh year in Korea that I was able to attend classes in Korean where I had enough time to attend classes. Because outside of that, I was teaching English. And then you know what? I'm sure my buddy is even going to say, you don't even speak English. That's where he really wants to go. He's like, you don't even speak English. Like, what? Now I know you're just, you're full of it, man. Now I know I hurt you by saying that Koreans are chauvinistic, nationalistic, xenophobic, and insular. Now, I don't know. You can't please people. You can't, it is what it is. But Donnell Rawlings, yeah, he said some things in Korean, but he also said he wasn't fluent. So, so what really am I talking about? My buddy was just saying, he can't speak Korean at all. That was his statement. He can't speak Korean at all. Like, all right, man. You're not the judge, man. You're not the judge and jury. So, it is what it is.
You're at 109 right now.